Welcome everybody to delivering the QBR your clients deserve. I'm joined with two fantastic guests today, Dave Cava and Shawn Walsh from Encore Strategic. For those of you who don't know me, Alex Farling from Lifecycle Insights. I'm the former MSP owner, one of you guys that complained a lot to a couple of developers and a CEO, and it wound up turning it into a company that has really helped about 500 MSP partners streamline and operationalize their QBR process and their VCIO process. So Shawn, Dave, you guys want to take just a quick couple of seconds and introduce yourselves and tell everybody a little bit about yourselves and Encore?
Absolutely. Thanks, Alex. So Shawn Walsh, Encore Strategic, where we help MSPs profit, grow, and exit. And like yourself, a former MSP owner as well, and having been through this, and this is a topic near and dear to my heart because I spent years just cobbling together reports from multiple sources, trying to make it look professional. And this is definitely something that was due to be changed up in the industry, and I'm glad to see you guys tackled it.
We have a lot of buzzwords and a lot of industry jargon, and I didn't realize it until we built this platform that cobbled together is actually industry jargon. So, Dave, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself there?
I too am an MSP alumni. I sold my company in 2019. So now working with Shawn, doing peer groups and recruiting as a service, and we talk QBRs on a regular basis. And the number of companies that have a fully mature way of doing this is less than 5%, I'd say.
Yeah, it's a small group, absolutely, right? And that's why I think this is such a hot topic. I think it's why we've experienced the growth that we have, and we're getting the turnout on a webinar on a 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the East Coast to talk about this topic because everybody's interested in it today. So we'll talk a little bit today about what a good QBR really looks like, what it takes to build one, and then how and where automation can come into play to kind of make the process easier. So with that, I do want to take just a second and take a step back and talk about how until this point we really haven't been good at them. In fact, we've been exceptionally bad at them. And I think taking an inventory of where we start and figuring out the status quo is always really important. So I'd like to talk about how we got here. You guys mentioned 95% of MSPs don't have a really dialed in process for this. The number one reason we hear for why are you not doing QBRs with your clients is, because they don't want to come. I can't get them to show up at the table, right? And after talking to hundreds of partners, we've kind of come up with the very sound working theory that that's because we were talking about the wrong things and we weren't exciting our partners, our customers. In fact, even worse, we were boring them to sleep with a justification of our existence. So, we originally we heard from the industry that we had to do QBRs when the RMM tools came out. That was really when it became a buzzword, when it became a thing. Shawn, Dave, when did you guys buy your first RMM tool? I bought mine in 2008.
Yeah, I bought mine in 2004. That's when we moved to the MSP.
Yeah, it would have been 2000. Wow, would have been, I don't know, 2005.
I didn't mean to hit you with a pop quiz.
Yeah, no, it would have been before I owned my company. It would have been when I was director of another company. Yeah,
okay.
About 2005.
So we all went out and bought these tools, and for us it was transformative, right? We were a break fix shop. We did the evolution like everybody else. And I went from walking into my biggest customer who had 100, 120, 130 humans scattered across 9 buildings. I knew where everyone's office was. I knew who sat in the offices. I knew their quirks. I knew who was left-handed and was going to have the mouse on the wrong side of the desk and I wasn't going to be able to operate things. I could talk to them about their kids, right? And I knew about their kids and what was going on in their families. Then we bought all this remote software and said, we'll fix 90% of our stuff remotely. We're going to stop driving out there. And we really lost our relationships. And that was just the beginning of it, because as these relationships started to deteriorate, the big four who were selling us all these licenses and really had an attachment and an addiction to the money that we were writing them checks for every month said, whoa, you can't not do remote services. Going on site, that goes against our sales pitch. You're going to have to do this other thing. Let's go justify our existence and have a quarterly business review. And so we entered into the Justify Your Business QBR. right? And I like to talk evolution, and this is kind of where it all started. And a lot of MSPs today are still trying to do that QBR. They think that they need to go meet with their customers to have that conversation, to say, this is what you pay me for, and this is why I'm worth $3,000 a month. And your customer looks at that and says, I just wrote you a check for $3,000 a month. I'm going to write you a check for another $3,000 next month. And now you're in here taking up my time to tell me why I pay you for the number that I'm going to write you a check for. And it's just not a good experience. But, to top that off, we even had one MSP vendor decide that they could calculate out all of the automation that happened in the platform and put a number of minutes next to it on your invoice and say, my automation saved you 2,000 minutes of tech time last month, which equates to $44,000, right? And they actually sent this out to customers and encouraged MSPs to send this out to customers. So we just came at this from the completely backwards instance of, this is about solving for a problem that we had in remote, instead of this is about building for a better future and helping our customers have a really, really strategic conversation. So the big takeaway is, a lot of us started in a deficit where this comes from, and we really want to get into a place where we deliver a better quarterly business review for our customers. So I want to talk about what a good QBR looks like. And Dave and Shawn, we kind of had this conversation a little bit the other day, and I talked through a couple of these components with you guys. The agenda might be my favorite document for a quarterly business review. And there's a few things in play here, and I'm going to admit right here, right now, today, in front of everybody, I didn't do this when we first started this. I picked this up from one of our beta partners who said, you've got to, when you build this platform, you've got to let me put an agenda in it that I can send back and forth to my customer. An agenda? We're having a QBR. That's the agenda. And he explained to me the beauty and the value of an agenda in this conversation. Not just to let our customer know what we want to talk about, but to probe our customer a little bit and say, what's important to you? What would you like to talk about? And what is it that I can come prepared to have a conversation with you about? And that opened up a whole new world for me at my MSP. I don't know if you guys ever used this trick, or if it's something that you've been enlightened on later on along the way. But it really enabled us to take the technical complaint, or the technician complaint that would derail a whole quarterly business review, right? Shawn was mean to Dave on his last support ticket, and now the customer wants to complain to me about it the whole time that we're at the meeting, instead of staying on agenda and going over what we need to cover. So now when I get that agenda back and it says, I want to talk about that ticket where Shawn was mean to Dave, I can go run and grab the phone and pick up the phone and, hey, Mr. Client, your satisfaction is way too important to me for this to wait, for you to stew for another week before we have this meeting. So let me just get this out of the way. Let me take care of this for you. I'll go throttle Shawn. We'll yell at him. We'll be mean to him. We'll give him a couple of days off unpaid, and then we'll sort this out for you, right? And now by the time I get to the meeting, and this is the beauty of it, this psychology of it, I've already solved a problem for my client, and they feel bad for being mean to me and telling me that my technician wasn't nice to somebody. So there's actually empathy coming from my client, and they're going to have a better relationship with me when I get there. And it plays into that thing where salespeople apologize for the weather, even though they can't control it, right? It's that psychology of, once you say I'm sorry to someone, or once you go fix a problem for someone, they're much more likely to be in your camp and in your corner. You guys have any comments about that, or anything you want to add there?
I think there's another dynamic at play in terms of a tyranny of the urgent issue, in that QBRs are so critically important to MSPs running an effective, mature business, but they're never on. It's never something that's ever going to be on fire.
Never a priority.
It's a pretty high percentage of MSPs that I've gotten so used to putting out the fire that when nothing's on fire, they just slow down and don't do much.
Yeah.
And that's
does that actually happen? Like, is there ever a time when nothing's on fire?
There's certainly a time where it happens with some of their employees, from what they tell me. But the reason why it's so important to make the mind shift of, I'm not justifying my time. This isn't a defensive maneuver. What this is structured, gentle, respectful inside sales. Is all of a sudden you're out of the tyranny of the urgent. You're out of urgency and into sales. Sales is never going to be urgent. Sales is its own beast that requires, trudging and effort and dedicated resources and
process, right?
It's it's hard to say, oh, should I go, work on the server that's down, or go do a QBR?
And
It's never going to be a competition.
and everybody gets bent out of shape and a little worked up when we start talking about sales. So I just want to make a comment about that. Like, if your sales process at your QBR feels like slimy sales, that's a sign you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Your QBR can be
Yeah,
a nice consultative relationship building environment in which your client feels compelled to buy something to fix a problem.
A QBR done correctly will both lead to additional revenue and greater client satisfaction. It's not one or the other. If it's haranguing, something's terribly wrong.
Yeah, when the client leaves the QBR, they should feel like the person who is doing the QBR or their account manager is an advocate for them. They're not a salesperson. There's somebody who's keeping them on track, making
Taking care
sure
of
that
them.
bad things don't happen, and advocating if somebody that the client can go to and say, the client can say, hey, things weren't going right with that last tech. Can we talk about that? And they know that person's going to go back and advocate for them. As long as they see the person doing it, and usually it's a cam role, as an advocate and not a salesperson, you're doing the right thing. The minute they feel, this is just a sales pitch, you've taken the value out of the QBR. They're not seeing it. And
I think you used a phrase there that we don't use. So for your partners will probably know what the cam role is, but can you take a step back and is that client account manager?
Okay. Yeah, client account manager. The other thing that you talked about is the justification role. And the problem is that most of the people who've started MSPs and who work in MSPs and oftentimes are doing the QBRs are owners, and they've come from the technical side. Yeah. They're very comfortable having technical conversations. It's very easy to talk about speeds and feeds and patches. Some of those people have a harder time. How do I take that information and turn it into a business discussion? And I often tell our clients, you have to stop having server room conversations and start having boardroom conversations. And the one thing I really liked about this reporting is it allows you to take technical information, but yet parlay it into a business conversation. And a lot of clients will tell us, I don't feel comfortable going into the CEO and telling them, so tell me about your 5-year strategic plan, or tell me what your business goals and objectives are. And, they fall back because of their comfort zone into talking speeds and feeds. And if the QBR is done well, it'll allow them to gracefully move into that business conversation and allow them to talk strategy in a way that adds a new level of value for their client.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marnie, if you wouldn't mind, you might want to just take the whole that QBR your clients deserve template from IT Nation out there. They might get some value out of that. So let's go talk about some additional components, and these are and Mark, I appreciate the interest in the individual component. Don't get too hung up on it. We're going to talk about them at a high level, and then we can kind of step down into the weeds and get into what some of these are. The next one, though, is a budget forecast. And this is one that most MSPs either aren't doing, or they're doing it only for the assets that they monitor, manage, and replace, like workstations and servers, right? Very few of them are doing it for switches and access points and all the extra stuff that lives in the client environment. And I had a really great conversation point with another vendor who said to me, if the MSP can't build a budget for the client, for their technology that you inventory and you maintain and you take care of every day, if you can't do it, who can? And, so we approach the budget from the conversation that it has to be total cost of ownership, not just PC and server replacements, and we didn't have the tools for it years ago. At my MSP, we budgeted for PCs and servers, and we broke the PCs into 4 groups, 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%, server on the odd year, and start over in the beginning, right? That was our 5-year technology refresh budget, and that's how we did it. But today, with better tools, we have the ability to go out and include things like, what do they spend with their copier contract? What do they spend on the door access system? I used to joke about the internet connected toaster and how much that maintenance bill costs, but now somebody probably supports one of those. So make sure you patch the toaster too.
Toaster as a service?
I used to tell everybody, if it's fancier than a toaster and you plug it in, call me, because I need to know about it, right? That's what I would tell my customers. And now I'm afraid If it's a toaster and you plug it in, if it has an LED screen on it, I probably need to know about it. So, but I think an important part about the budget is, what does it cost to maintain the items that we own? And we forget to have that conversation with our customers. I had an MSP tell me he was working with a customer, and before he had given him a budget, they said, it can't be time to replace that server yet. We just bought it. It's got to be a year old. And he looked at the customer and said, if that server was one of your children, it would be walking, talking, potty trained, and giving you fits by now, because it's 5 years old and it's time for it to be replaced. And I think our customers don't realize it. They remember the shock of Dave coming in the door and going, "Hey, I need 20 grand to replace a server." And they go, "Ouch. Oh, this month, next month, can we put it in 2023?" Right. And they remember the pain. They don't remember that we'd been talking about it for 2 years up to that point, and those kind of things. And in a lot of cases, MSPs aren't really talking about it until it's too late. I was guilty of knock, surprise. I need 40 grand to replace Windows 7 machines, right? And certainly did that with Windows XP.
There's nothing more frustrating for small business owners than unexpected CapEx expenses that are large.
Yeah.
They get mad about it. I mean, they think they're going to make money that month, and then you walk in,
right. They think they can afford that vacation. And we snatch it right back from them. So the next component I want to talk about is the risk assessment, because as cybersecurity becomes a bigger and bigger thing, and I'm literally sitting at the Right of Boom event. I may have social engineered someone else's badge, but sitting at the Right of Boom event in Tampa, talking about cybersecurity, and we're having real serious conversations about what risk looks like today, more so than at any point in my experience with MSPs in the last 18 years that I've been involved in the channel. Risk is just becoming the biggest, most important thing. So if we're not leading with some sort of a risk review that says this is what your status quo looks like, then we don't even know where we are to know what moving towards a better, more secure, more stable, more reliable environment looks like for our customers. So I think this takes up a big piece of the conversation. It's a front and center talking point. I also think it's a great reasoning or excuse to get back in front of your customers if you've done a few of these wrong and they've stopped engaging with you. We can get into a cybersecurity business review that's a reason to get back engaged with our customer. So I think that's QBRs, SBRs, TBRs, strategic technical business reviews, whatever you want to call them. Everybody has a name for it. If you've got a client who doesn't want to engage, think about calling it a cybersecurity risk review. Everybody hears that in the news today. It's all over the place. And it's a good way to get kind of some low pushback engagement with your client, so you can sit down with them and talk about the state of the world today.
And every generation of IT support has something different that kind of opens up the wallet, loosens the purse strings. When Shawn and I were first 15, 20 years ago, it was data backups. Everybody, I had a server crash and I lost all my data. How do I make sure this never happens again?
Yep.
And today that is security, and we don't want to abuse that or be hucksters about it, but it really is the thing that that shows value to the client, and the place where they stop thinking about what am I spending first. At least some of them will.
Yeah. Well, and if we can frame it properly, we can have the conversation about the impact that risk has on their business outcomes. So we're back to what you were talking about early on, which was, technology enables those business outcomes. And if we're doing it right, we're talking about the risk to cash flow, the risk to the business outcomes that really drive the business and ring the cash register. The next component's a recommendation, right? There's going to be something at just about every business review that we come to the client and say, we could do something better. It's very rare that any of us walk in. You could probably pick your best client, your most compliant client that does everything you ask them to do. And there's probably a product or service or a policy or a procedure or something that you should work on for that client. It may not be billable, may not be increased MRR with your best client. With the rest of your clients, it's going to be. It may be just, and this is a great topic here, running through your incident response plan for the year. Go test your backups, go run through and do a tabletop exercise and build for a few VCIO hours to go out and do this planned activity that is incident response, because we found out when the big Kaseya breach happened that MSPs didn't know how to restore their clients. They really weren't ready. They had backups. They had little pictures of booted servers that said they were okay. But it took them days and weeks and months. I just listened to a guy who said it was 28 days before he got his final client up and running. So we need to know what those processes look like. These recommendations are the things that we're going to make to our customer. And I think it opens up the conversation that we're never done working on this, right? This is a continuous cycle of continuous improvement type engagement. And every time we touch that thing, we leave it better than we had it. So every year we touch the policies, the procedures, all of the little things, but also we improve the cybersecurity tools. We replace the things that have aged out. We continue to cycle up and improve the environment. If we've done our budget right, most of these aren't big surprises. And I think that's an important part of the conversation.
Yeah, and it's, we talked about this the other day, how expenses are just thought of so differently when they're coming. I called it the mother-in-law issue. Like when you if you go, you're having a barbecue for Labor Day, your mother-in-law is over, and you wait till the end of the barbecue, you go up to her and say, the wife and I were talking about doing something different for Christmas this year. I think it's going to be just our nuclear family. We're going to go down to Florida, and we just want to let you know to make sure that you can make other plans and really have a wonderful Christmas. And she's going to get all flustered and upset and be angry at you and everything else. And Thanksgiving's going to roll around and just say, "Hey, Mom, how did it work at work making other plans for Christmas? Have you got? Oh yeah, I'm going to go to your brothers in Connecticut, and they're getting a duck, and it's going to be wonderful. I'm really excited about it." And then Christmas rolls around, everybody has a good Christmas, right? Versus if you call the week before Christmas and just say, "Mom, we're not coming," you're going to be persona non grata for years. You're getting cut out of the will.
Well, and you won't be invited to the wonderful Thanksgiving meal next year.
Yeah. So I mean,
I played a lot of defense when it came to family meals because I wanted to be invited to the meals where all the good food was.
Yeah.
Right.
It's such a different dynamic when you're saying you got to replace this in a year, you got to replace it in 9 months, you got to replace it in 6 months, you got to replace it in 3 months. Okay, it's time to replace it. There's no argument. There's no
surprise. We knew it was coming. We're able to forecast for those things. And you used a word fairly early on, which was expenses. And we had a partner that said one time, the beauty of the budgeting module is that once something gets budgeted, it doesn't get cut. Budgets don't get cut, expenses do. So when your client's looking for some place to cut, if you've been delivering them a CSV spreadsheet that is, here's your budget for IT, Mr. CFO, go ahead and import this into QuickBooks or whatever accounting software you use and use this to budget out and plan for that. Guess what? Your stuff's going to get planned for. They might have to keep the copier an extra year. They might have to, they might not replace a piece of equipment somewhere, but your stuff is in the budget and it's much less likely to get cut. So that's another great little tie-in there. And then the last thing I like to talk about is that executive summary. I know everyone on this call is tired of meetings, is tired of Zoom calls, so I appreciate you coming to this one. It feels like all we do today is back to back meetings and meeting after meeting, call after call. And what we have to realize is that when we go give our strategic business review, our cybersecurity business review, whatever type of a business review to our client, if we meet with them at 2:00, they probably have 3 other meetings before the day's over. When they walk away from the table, we will have bombarded them with a lot of information in an hour. It's a very information-packed hour. When they walk away from that, their brain needs to kind of rest a little. And it's nice to have one page that they can go back to and say, my priorities for the next 3 months or 6 months or whatever the time frame is, are these. These are my biggest risks, and these are how we're going to remediate them. And I agreed when we talked that we could go ahead and take care of those. So these are going to be my commitments. And I used to print these and put them in the little comb binders. I don't have one with me. The clear plastic front, black back on them, and put them all together. And I would not bind to this page. And when you get to the back to get to this page, go over it with your customer, pull it out, and stick it under the front cover. Because now it is the first thing that they look at, and it's got exactly what they need to worry about. And I'd slide it back across the table and go, this, if you don't remember anything else from this call, these are the things we're going to work on for the next quarter or next 2 quarters or whatever. So I think it's nice to keep in mind that your customers have as many Zoom calls as you do, as many meetings as you do. If we can give them any kind of a little crutch to remind them what we were doing, what we were working on, what our priorities were, I think it kind of helps your success rates.
The nice thing about this, Alex, is that, when I was doing QBRs, we were pulling in a lot of this information, but we were pulling it in from so many disparate sources.
Yeah.
And we were there trying to take reports that didn't look the same,
We were
didn't feel the
cobbling.
same, different. Yeah, we were cobbling. We were putting them together, but there
He
was
isn't me making
nothing.
shoes, like
Right. It was completely disjointed. It was, and it felt disjointed. The thing that I really like about this is that you're able to pull from a lot of different data sources, put
Yep.
it in a cohesive way, but you take the technical and you bridge it over to the strategic business.
The strategic and the
And
business.
you
Yeah.
say, here's all the things that are expiring and the speeds and feeds, but here's where it moves into a budget. Now let's talk about budget. Let's talk about
Yeah.
strategic planning. Let's talk about timing. And before you know it, you're having that boardroom conversation that I talked about earlier. And it's a very natural progression with this. And that is something that your clients understand. They don't understand the speeds and fees. And
No,
now they get it. And
Yep.
when they can, as you said, they've planned it now, they're budgeting it, you're repeating it each time you get there, you're building on the past communications. There is just a cohesiveness to this process. And you're bringing it all together in a way that's very comfortable for everybody in the room, and nobody's sitting there tuning out.
Right.
When you start, because you're going too far into one side of the conversation or the other.
So you used the word process about 3 times there, which is a nice, easy transition into what does our process really look like? And on the left, you'll see discover, assess, and report. Those are the 3 components of our iterative improvement account management process that really will set you up for success at your MSP. These 3 pieces go into the QBR component. Okay, remediate and verify on the right. These are after the QBR. We deploy a project. We make sure that the project did what we expected it to do. We kind of, reassess our state and then do it all over again, right? But discover, assess, and report are as simple as we have the tools deployed in the environment. We go check our tools, see what exists in the environment, what its status is, what it looks like. Is it healthy? Is it not healthy? Does it still align with our best practices or not? That assessment is the process of going through the risk assessment, right? We're going to go through and create a risk assessment, and then we're going to generate the reports that go along with it all. It's really just that simple. If we go through a discovery process, kind of like you would with a new customer, but we're just checking up on our existing customer, going out, firewall still what I think it is, it's still configured the way I think it is, life is good. 365 still what I think it is, still kind of configured the way that I think it ought to be. Security score doesn't totally stink. Moving in the right direction. And as we go through all of this and build the reports, this just becomes that iterative process. And the account managers that use our tool today literally live in it, and to go from one to the next. When they go back to do the second one, they literally go look at what got done between the last business review and the next one. They kind of look at what the remediation was, verify that it solved for the problem, and then they discover, assess, and report all over again. So, this is a cycle of continuous improvement that your MSP can almost live on, that I think has a lot of value, but a large chunk of it plays into what we do and the conversation that we have at that quarterly business review. So that'll take us up to Shawn's point about where does all the data come from? Like, what are we doing to get all of this data? And there's a lot of it. So, the data sets that we look at, and the problem that I had that made me want to start this company was I was an IT guy and I had a sign over my desk that said, if you have to do it twice, automate it. And then I did QBRs, and I went to Warranty Master and I printed a report and I stuck it in my binder. And I went to Audit for IT and I made some pretty square boxes that didn't really give me the flexibility that I wanted, but I stuck it in my report. And then I went to another tool and I got a patch report and a backup report and all these other things, and I kind of stuck them all together. They didn't look alike. They looked terrible together, because I'm going from one company's branding to another company's branding to another company's branding. There's no cohesive conversation, but I'm pulling data from all of these sources. The concept behind our platform is that we have the data. There's no excuse for a human to have to be entered. We literally should be able to ingest these data points and make them actionable. And that's really where I think our developers have kind of knocked it out of the park. We use APIs to go out and collect the data, as opposed to you having to And in the current world, I know some MSPs who have a hell of an Excel spreadsheet that they take to every QBR, right? And they've got this thing, they've been working on it for 15 years. It slices, it dices, it calculates, it shows risks, it does all this stuff. But when they get there, when they have a transition, when they get stuck trying to grow, and they realize there's only one person in the office that can operate this unwieldy beast, they have a real problem, right? Or the folks who are doing it in PowerPoint or Word have this problem where when they pull this data from all these other places, they're 6, 8, 10 hours into prepping for these things. We actually had one MSP tell us he was spending 12 hours by the time he built his budget and did all of this QBR stuff. He was doing budgeting. He had a great budget, but it was a ton of work. And it just made it to where these were really, really tough to retain profitable with. So, from there, we're out looking at these sources. We're going to go ahead and pull them in, and then we're going to help you build the documentation with a whole lot less high-level resources in your organization. No more the CEO, the VCIO, the service desk manager are the only people qualified to do this work. Right? This is the goal for this, is that now this can become entry-level engineering work for half of the, a lot of the presentation and prep work, or a lot of the prep work, or even intern work for a lot of the prep work. We have an MSP who has this dialed in for an intern and a sales assistant do all the prep work, and he gets the QBR 15 minutes before he walks in the door. So, we can finish up our topics and then kind of slide into the platform and take a look at it, or we can do that at this point. What do you guys want to do?
I have one quick comment, and that's,
yeah.
When you look at something I speak about regularly is kind of the stages of maturity that MSPs go through. And that first stage, is you're only doing QBRs for a few clients. You're doing QBRs for your most important clients that are the
80% or the 20% that makes you your 80%. Yeah.
And the neediest. Maybe you have 50 clients, you're doing QBRs for 3 of them because it's all you have time for, and they're very manual. The thing I love about a tool like this is that it can actually leapfrog you into another stage of maturity in this area.
Yeah, so a tool like this, and you guys should be able to see it on the screen now. A tool like this really does give you the ability to take all of your clients and put them in a scheduler and say, hey, for these clients, what I'm going to do is I'm going to meet with this client twice a year. That's maybe all they justify, right? Not every client's a quarterly business review client. Here's my really high touch client that needs to see me all the time. We're going to go ahead and meet with them monthly. You'll have a semi-annual client, a quarterly client, whatever. You'll have a lot of those kind of broken out there. So that's the concept behind the scheduler. But what we're really doing, where the magic happens, is down here in the integrations, right? We're going to reach into tools like IT Glue, ConnectWise, Autotask, Synchro, Halo PSA. We're going to grab data points from all of those and start to build out what your asset list looks like, what your user list looks like, who and what is the MSP supporting. Right, we're going to take all of that and kind of put it all together, and then we'll supplement it with data points from all these other things. So we'll do warranty lookups from Dell, HP, Lenovo, Cisco, Meraki, Cisco SmartNet, Microsoft Surface, a bunch of those. We'll pull in some data from Microsoft 365. We'll pull in data from LineGuard and Breach Secure Now. So we're going to continue to improve the quality of the data that exists up in these tools with additional integrations that we're pulling data in from here. We're actually going to, and we were the first platform ever to start to look at the data in ConnectWise and in some of these other platforms and say, hey, these clients have kind of crappy data. Maybe you shouldn't be presenting them the quarterly business review yet, because you're going to have a little bit of garbage in, garbage out. These clients over here, they have real nice, healthy data. They're well documented. Everything's there that we expect to find. You can go talk to them. You're ready to go with these folks. So we've actually built some of this sanity checking in because the PSA tools just don't do a good job of it. But from there, let's take the 5 components that we kind of talked through earlier and just talk about what it looks like to create them. We can start with that. So if we look into our report builder here, we can start kind of pulling together a quarterly business review. And I just want to pull the 5 components we talked about. You can get fancier. You could do less for a client who doesn't need that much. But in our report builder, we can save a template where we can just pull up an old template and continue to update it for a customer, right? And this one's long, it's in my demo environment, so it's got a bunch of stuff in it. Or we can just build one from scratch. So if I wanted to add a component out here, I could literally come out and go grab an agenda template and add it to my report. Now, this agenda template, oh, I grabbed a blank one. That's not very useful. Let's go grab one that's not blank. There we go. So now we've grabbed an agenda template and stuck it in here. Here's where we're going to insert our client updates and changes. So we're going to reach out to our client, find out if they've got anything new going on, and we'll go ahead and update this a little bit with some of their info. But that's all it takes for us to build an agenda. It's fairly standardized. And once we customize it for a customer, we'll save it, we'll attach it to that customer. And on the next meeting, we'll probably take our after action items down here, the to-dos, move them up here to project updates, to dones, and start over with some new to-dos. But it's literally just a tiny little bit of work to keep that agenda up to speed. After the agenda, we're probably going to go present to the client and talk to them about a risk assessment that we did. So let's go grab a risk assessment template. And we'll grab this one right here. The last risk assessment I did for this customer. What the heck, we'll use this one right here. So we can import a risk assessment. Here's all the results of my risk assessment. I'll show you in a couple minutes how we're going to score this, but this is essentially everything we did for the client. This client scored a 68, so they've got a lot of work to do. They're not really aligned with my best practices. You can see hardware and business application software, they scored really poorly in. Let's make a budget template for these guys now so that we can talk about what it costs to support the status quo. And think about it as I'm going through this. And I'm going to use spreadsheet view just because I like the way it lays out better. As I'm going through this, I'm also thinking about my talk track, right? When I'm looking at the talk track, I'm thinking about what is my conversation with my customer as I get in here. We start with an agenda. The assessment summary shows me the status quo. Mr. Customer, if we change nothing, if we don't do anything new or different, let's talk about what it looks like to run your organization for the next 6 months or the next 12 months or whatever. This is the risk profile you're going to have to live with it. Then we follow it up with a budget. Again, if we change nothing, this is what it costs to run your organization. And you can see this client's going to be spending $94,000 this year, 110 next year, then 108, 97, and 98. So we're planned out for this customer for 5 years with a detailed budget. We're going to want to make some recommendations for this client. We're going to want them to do something a little bit better or different than what they've done before. So we'll go ahead and add a recommendations template in here. Now I've already built my recommendation, and we're just going to do a policy of procedures engagement with this client. The things that we're going to fix by doing this engagement, and I apologize for my slow hotel Wi-Fi or 4G Wi-Fi here, but it's poking along a little bit. We can link the assessment items, the reds that we showed you on those previous screens, right to the spend to tell the customer. And our customers, our C-level executives, they're competitive. They didn't get to be a business owner by not being competitive. We get to sit down with them and say, look, I know I'm going to ask you to spend $1,500, but when you do that, we're going to turn all these reds to green. We're going to resolve all the business pain that's associated with these things here. We're going to improve that scoring. We're going to give you a better score when we're all said and done. So this really helps them figure out exactly what it is that we're solving for, what it is that we're fixing. And then the last component to that, of course, is going to be that we're going to add a executive summary report. In our tool, that is just a standard text block template. So we'll grab a text block template, and I have an executive summary that I've built here. Now, this is a WYSIWYG doc. So you can see if I click here, you'll see that I have just a screenshot stuck in here, a screenshot stuck in here, and just some blank text stuck in here. So you can make this say whatever you want, right? You can customize this any way you want. If you have clients who are used to looking at your Bright Gauge and you want to bring in some Bright Gauge reports, if they're used to looking at any other tools that you have, you can bring info out of Smileback, out of your backup solutions, just about anything, and include it into this, into this kind of a report. And you can use them other places in the platform. I'm just doing 5 sample reports today. You can build your own, you can customize, you can tweak, etc. As soon as I save this template, I see the conversations going on in there. Haven't forgotten you guys. I think Marnie's got you for now.
I'll just chime in, but if you could, when you loop around and just kind of talk about the integration and the asset, how we're doing warranty lookups and assets, that's what my long explanation's about.
Sure. So now that I've saved my template and I attach it to a customer name, so I can go grab it from that customer again in the future, I can actually just click one button to print all of this to Word, or I can use our presentation mode, which basically shortcuts all of the PowerPoint, keeps you from having to go build a PowerPoint presentation. This is going to give me my 5 reports down the left-hand side here. I can click through them one at a time, or I can use the forward and back indicators here and drive my way through the conversation with my customer, something like this. So that's what it takes to build this once you've done the prep. And now I see Dave's question, which is, how many labor hours are we going to have to spend supporting a customer, telling the customer, we're putting extra hours in every quarter to do this kind of work. this tool basically, oh, wait a minute, maybe I didn't read that right. Will this tool total the amount of labor hours we have to spend? No, it doesn't. We do have some ticket reporting, and we can show you how many tickets were open, how many tickets were closed. We don't pull anything that would be labor hours, but if you're a ConnectWise shop, you could probably go steal something out of one of the reports out of ConnectWise. I know ConnectWise way better than the other tools just because I ran on it. I'm assuming all the other tools have something, and you could put it in an executive summary report of some kind. Some MSPs deliver a scorecard type report that says, hey, here's how we did on patching, here's how we did on backups, here's the labor spend or whatever. And that will kind of help you take some of those stats that they're used to seeing and distill them down, make them a little less important, a little less relevant. I would argue that you don't need to tell the customer how many hours you spend. Your goal is to spend as few hours as possible while delivering an amazing experience, right? If we're talking about how many
Alex,
hours we spent, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I mean, we're telling MSPs, you've got to get out of the mindset of trading dollars for hours, because you should be trying to be as efficient as possible in reducing your hours, and you should get the benefit of that. And you don't want to create your own objection with the client, and the client saying, well, you only put in this many hours, but I paid you this much. The client should be paying for results, and you should be trying to use automation to push that effective hourly rate as high as possible.
And the change just in the relationship, when you go from that justify my existence quarterly business review, which this sounds like, the holdover from that business review, to Mr. Customer, let me show you that 2022 is, or 2023 is actually going to be your worst spend of the next 5 years. I want you to be ready for it. We've gone beyond how many hours and how many tickets. We're now helping them prep for an incoming problem that they need to know about. This report alone is a jaw drop moment for probably 40 or 50% of the clients that it gets presented to, because they've never seen it before. And if you wanted to present it differently, you could show a 12-month budget, you could show a 5-year budget, you can show it any way you want. But the budget is really a big portion of kind of how we deliver this and really knock it out of the park for MSPs, how they get the biggest bang for the buck, if you will, with their clients. We had a question about integration, so I want to step back to it just for a minute there. And Marnie, you were talking about warranty lookups. So what we do is we pull the assets from one of your primary integrations, either an IT glue or a PSA. We'll go ahead and pull in all the assets. So we'll pull your Dell servers, we'll pull your Dell workstations and all that. We actually build you an asset list. We don't spend a lot of time talking about the asset list. You can deliver it to your client if you want. I usually deliver it after my my executive summary, because we're not going to talk about it unless there's a problem on it. It's their data. I don't mind letting them have it. I want to be very transparent and kind of steward that data out to them. But it's not worth the time of the CEO, the COO, the CFO, the department managers, and everybody else who's going to be in that room, right? So we're going to pull these assets out of your primary configurations. If we scroll down here and go find a workstation, here's a Dell workstation. We go out and do the warranty lookup for it. So we know when it was purchased. This one was purchased in 2019. And we can see that it came with a 3-year warranty. It'll go end of warranty in 2022. We're getting that data from the Dell API. So if you're asking questions about about where we get that, we actually go to Dell with this make, model, and serial. Say, tell me what you know about this asset. Then we apply a policy to it that says, and my MSP customer told me we keep their PCs for 5 years. So we're going to put a hard end of life date on this asset and tell our customer that they need to replace it 4 years after they bought it, or 5 years after they bought it, sorry. And you can customize those any way you want. So with that new end of life date, I'm automatically going to apply the replacement dollars to the budget based on when that end of life date hits. So this is going to give us the ability to create a budget without having to do a bunch of clicks. You guys saw me go create the budget real fast and not really do anything with it. And the beauty is you really don't have to do anything with it, short of pulling in some some contracts and subscriptions and some of those kind of things. If you want to show how much they spend for the internet, how much they spend for voice, how much they spend for some of those other things. To Chris's point, we do not integrate with RMM tools. We go straight to the source of truth. And what we find with RMM tools is they don't know about anything that doesn't have an agent installed, right? We need everything. We need a total cost of ownership budget, not just PCs and servers. So we need to go to where an MSP would document a switch, where would they document a firewall, where would they document a wireless access point. Ninja's a great product. It's going to give you all of the amazing detail about PCs, right? Your RMM tool is going to know everything about a PC all the way over to here. And then we'll supplement the rest of that data once that data makes it into your RMM tool.
they are positioning themselves to be a, kind of a low end all-in-one where they change the name to Ninja.
Yeah, and they're not there yet, but we're watching them for a PSA release. I think they're going to have a PSA release at some point, even if it's a little stripped down.
Yeah, I was a little
So,
surprised to see them at IT Nation. They were like, I guess ConnectWise isn't too worried.
yeah,
So,
well, yeah, I don't know. They ConnectWise claimed to be the open platform for a long time, and sometimes you just have to live up to that. But I think Ninja goes there.
and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
And Alex, can you talk about the line guard integration? I want to make sure Chris, thank you.
So the Lion Guard integration is a supplemental integration. What Lion Guard is going to give you is, and it will create configurations for things like switches, firewalls, all that kind of stuff, and it'll push that back to your PSA. And if you've got those configs there, we can pull them. But again, we're looking for that central point of detail. Same thing with Avik. It's going to put that data into your ARM or into your PSA, and we'll go ahead and pull it from there. So all of these other tools that aren't listed, they're great if you have them. We do a little bit extra with LineGuard that we don't do that we couldn't get from a product like Avik. What we're actually getting from LineGuard is stuff like we're using their G Suite inspector to go out and look up Google accounts, because built-in integrated, we only do users out of Microsoft 365. So from LineGuard, we're getting G Suite accounts. We're getting Azure AD MFA status. Is it turned on or turned off? We're getting know before if you use that for your security awareness training. Breach Secure Now is the only one we do integrated, but we actually have a security awareness report in the platform. I don't want to go into too much of this. If you guys have that kind of interest, you can jump in and schedule a demo. Marnie can give you guys a link to schedule a demo, or there's one on the final page. Yes, John, the PSA has to be clean. The PSA is, and that's just one of the things that we have to mature our internal processes to make sure that we retire assets properly, that if something goes sideways, we clean up the mess that gets made in our PSA. Because yes, duplicate assets are a thing, and they can create a real problem for us. But you can see if a MSP has Breach Secure Now configured, this is what our user list looks like, and we're pulling this much data from Azure. I'm sorry, from ConnectWise. Then we get to we see that this email address also exists in BSN. Here's all that user's BSN scoring and data. Then here's the Microsoft license they consume and the last time they actually logged into Microsoft. So we show all of that data points out of 3 or 4 different products, all kind of pulled together into one report. These are those below the fold reports that aren't really, they're not front and center. They're not as important as a budget. They're not as important as a risk assessment. If you have know before and LineGuard, John, then you'll be able to get know before out of the box. We'll be doing know before integrated, hopefully by the end of the quarter, but we are going to do a direct integration with know before at some point and ID agent. So I don't want to totally derail our webinar and spend a ton of time in here, but what I want you guys to see is that we're reaching out and grabbing all this data from a lot of other places where we give you ways to create recommendations to go tell your customer that they need to spend money that you hadn't planned on. We give you a place to import contracts and subscriptions that you don't typically have a place to store in ConnectWise or IT Glue. So how much do they spend on their phone bill? How much is the copier rental? How much are all these other things, so that we can slide these over to the budget. You can delegate this out to your customer and have them log in to do this portion of it, but you don't have to. You can have your sales assistant, you can have your intern, you can have somebody in your organization do it. My account managers would get invoices from the customers and log in and document them. It takes 3 minutes. It's really not a whole lot of work. But this is how we knew when they were spending money on something else that they wouldn't be able to spend with me, right? When I'm looking at this budget forecast, even if they're not buying something from me, if they have a $30,000 Salesforce renewal in April 1st, I'm not going to them with a server sale in April 1st, right? I'm going to wait until I'm going to spread the budget out. I'm going to have the conversation about those things. We're going to have a real business conversation so that we can stop talking about stuff like the number of hours that we worked on a contract or something like that. So in the interest of time, if you guys would like a demo, Marnie's dumped the report or the link out there for it. Let's go ahead and kind of take the next step into how process and automation can help you. And every MSP kind of goes through a journey here, right? We have we did it in Excel, we did it in Word, we did it all manually, we cobbled it together thing, right? The next iteration of that is, and where we find a lot of MSPs starting with us, is we have a kind of dialed in process. Like we've got it figured out. We know what reports we want to show. We know what the talk track is. We're kind of good at QBRs, but now we need to speed it up. I need to make sure that somebody other than Shawn Walsh can do it, because right now he's the only guy in the building that can actually do one and have it come across. Or when Shawn does it, the customer gets a budget and all this other cool stuff. And when Alex does it, they only get a couple of PC replacements and a conversation about tickets and stuff that doesn't really matter. So there's a lack of consistency. Where process and automation helps you is it doesn't matter who does the work, right? Shawn and I are splitting the work today. We hire Dave, we bring him in and we put him in a tool. Now Dave can generate the same thing that we can in a really reduced amount of time. And we're going to get a similar result across no matter who touches it. And this is one of those things that gives an owner back their time, which is the hardest thing to scale on an MSP. Lets the people who work with them and for them do more of the heavy lifting, set them up for success to go have these meetings. And it puts in automation that makes sure we get the same repeatable result every time. And by doing that, this is where a system really starts to elevate you go from process to system is where you really get the biggest elevation, the biggest improvement. I've talked for a good bit. Dave and Shawn, you got some opinions on that?
I got a question.
Fire away.
So how many man hours do you think it is to get to the point where you are rocking and rolling and automated and
Yeah.
at a point where other people can use the tool? I ask that because there's some tools out there that the reputation they have is that, well, if you dump a ton of time into it, it's a wonderful product, but most people never get there,
And that's a fair statement for a lot of tools, right? We wind up in a situation where sometimes you get out of it what you put into it. What I'll say is this is a really unfortunate answer because I have to say it depends, right? And the reason I have to say that is because if you're a ConnectWise shop that's been around for 25 years and has 25 years worth of legacy, we've never cleaned up the assets in ConnectWise. You're going to have a bigger lift than a Synchro MSP who's been around for 15 minutes as a two-man shop.
it's a bigger lift you should do anyway, though.
It's definitely work you should do anyway.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, that MSP who's been around longer and had more hands in the pot, I thought that when we started this, I thought they would be the most mature, right? I thought they would have the process. I thought their stuff would be clean and they'd be good to go. And as we onboarded more and more larger MSPs, we saw those were the guys that just had a little bit more work to do because they hadn't kept everything straight, they hadn't kept everything clean. And the reality of it is, it's work and cleanup that you should be doing just so your billing reconciliations are right, so that you know what you're actually billing for every month, what you're supporting, what your liabilities are. And a lot of folks really just don't have a good grasp on what configurations, what assets are in their PSA. So we give you a lot of visibility into that. We color code a lot of things. You saw a lot of red, yellow, and green in there. We'll start to show you the assets that are, hey, this thing looks like it's really, really old. Is there any way you're still running that? We have duplicate item detection. So if the same item's in there twice with the same serial number, we'll pop up and tell you and help you go out and clean up duplicates.
You're going right where my brain was going, because it sounds like you can actually use the tool to help you with that cleanup process that really should happen anyway.
We absolutely are the guide rails for the cleanup process. In fact, I'll step back in real quick and just show you the first two fields here are about what is the data quality for this organization and where do we have missing data. And when I have missing data, I can literally just click a button and say, these two assets don't have a serial number. And that's a problem for me because I can't do a warranty lookup if I don't have a serial number. So I can actually drill right in, find the assets that I need to have the problem, spit them out to an Excel spreadsheet, hand them off to an engineer. And now I can let a level one person go back and do my data cleanup. It's not my VCIO doing the cleanup. It's not my account manager. It's not my business owner. And we use this for interns. If people could do data cleanup well and could get client accounts looking good in here, number one, they were learning your tools. They're clicking on all the buttons. They're going all the places. They're getting into the RMM, into the PSA. They're navigating your tools, and you're learning who has attention to detail and who doesn't. Right? This is a great way to work with an intern and figure out what they're, if they're really worth their salt. So John asked if this could replace ScalePad Warranty Master or is it supplemental? I would say 95% of our customers have replaced ScalePad. We do not sell warranties. So if you are buying their Park Place warranties or whatever it is that they sell today, you'll have to find an outside source for that. But if you're just doing the warranty lookups, a lot of folks drop their ScalePad or their ScalePad licensing. We also have folks, retire products like VCIO Toolbox, My IT Process, Strategy Overview, because our risk assessments kind of take over that piece. And we have folks drop products like Audit for IT that are just sales presentation tool because they take this system and kind of spin it into their sales process so that the first QBR is the sale and everything stays very consistent so that after the sale, everything looks the same to the customer. Rapid fire, you got to keep right. Oh, sorry, Shawn, go ahead.
That's good. I was going to say the one nice thing about this platform is it's not one more place to go to for data. It's really truly aggregating all the data that you already have. And so often there are tools that we expect to do that wind up not doing that. And it just winds up being one more place to go. And that's one of the things that I really did like about this.
We're spending a lot of time trying to make sure that when we add a data point, it's to make something actionable and to make something usable and to allow it to help move the needle for your customer. And we're continuing to add data points. That's going to be a big chunk of 2022 is what are the additional data points we can add that really move the needle and add value. To John's question about rapid fire tools, you need something to make sure that to go out and actually scan your environments to give you the data to answer the assessment questions, right? We're going to give you a risk assessment, but it's red, yellow, green, click your answer, and kind of go through and score it. You need to have a human review something. And whether it's rapid fire tools or cyber CNS or the Green Cloud's continuous defense monitoring platform, whatever one you're using. And I tend to be of the opinion that rapid fires, kind of the old guard. I want something today that is continuous scan, not just run it every quarter when you get ready to go do a business review. So if you have the really expensive rapid fire stuff, you might have it doing that too. But I think there's cheaper and easier tools for some of that today. And sitting here at Right of Boom and having the conversation with these guys about how quick they're seeing encryption and malware deployed from the time that somebody gets into a network. It's definitely one of the things that you want to be scanning nonstop. Cyber CNS is the one that I would look at, Chris, but Green Cloud Defense also has a new product in this space that I think is probably worth a look. Warren asked about syncing opportunities to ConnectWise or to the PSA. Today, we can push tickets back to the PSA with an item or a user or whatever that you need to attach to a ticket. But in the next couple of quarters, I am hoping we'll get it out this quarter, or I'm sorry, next quarter. But syncing over opportunities is absolutely on our roadmap and something that we're going to get done. So we got to get ticket creation really wrapped up and dialed in and pushed across all of the platforms. So today that works in ConnectWise. We'll get it into Autotask, Halo, Synchro, and then we'll go back and do the same thing with recommendations. Recommendations will become opportunities, which then obviously can become projects and work through that way. So with that, I think we're kind of to the wrapping up. If you want to learn more, by all means, follow me on LinkedIn. I'm really active on LinkedIn. If you have questions, comments, want to just follow me to hear, the kind of things that we're talking about, learning about, communicating with our partners. Feel free to, just connect with me on LinkedIn. Warren, we will give you a copy of the video if you registered today. We did get this recorded, so we will go ahead and send this out as a recording. If you want to know a little bit more about the company, go visit lifecycleinsights.sucks. If you didn't come to IT Nation, you might not get the joke, but there's a lot of fun to be had on lifecycleinsights.sucks. Might tell you a little bit more about how we believe we can have fun while we do some pretty serious business. And then, of course, go check out the free trial. The free trial is for 5 companies. So bring 5 of your companies into the platform, spend 30 days at it. In 30 days, you should be delivering your first QBR out of the platform. Once you convert to a paid account, use that coupon code Encore 2 months, which will get you 50% off of your first 2 paid months for visiting this webinar here with us and the Encore Consulting guys. And then we've also built out a standard operating procedure for setting up a quarterly business review. This was actually the brainchild of one of our partners. He was nice enough to share it with the industry. We've kind of customized it, taken out a little bit of really specific stuff that was his. I see I've got an extra light bulb on my slide. That's really pretty. But that downloadable SOP is literally just a Word document that you can build a standard operating procedure of your own from. So I encourage you to take it, change it, manipulate it, and make it your own. And then with that, I'll hand it over to Shawn and let him wrap up and give you guys a quick about Encore Strategic.
Thanks, Alex. And yes, if anybody is interested in learning more about Encore Strategic and how we help clients profit, grow, and exit, you can reach out to myself on LinkedIn or at Shawn at Encore SC. And we'd be happy to talk to anybody about our peer groups, our direct coaching, and our recruiting as a service.
Awesome. Recruiting as a service. I love this one. I mean, that's one that not enough folks I think are doing. So it's definitely an interesting talking point there. We're kind of running out of time, but tell me just a little bit about what you guys do for recruiting as a service, because everybody's big problem on the tech bench side is, where do I go to find help?
That's my baby. And, basically, I would love to come back sometime and do a webinar.
Yeah,
on,
let's do it.
Not necessarily on recruiting as a service per se, but on strategic entry-level hiring and how I believe it is something that is going to separate the, girls from the women and the men from the boys in this industry, that the MSPs that really succeed exponentially learn how to build a team and don't go out and try and buy one.
Yeah.
I'd love to come back and talk about that. But
That's a great topic. That we will
recruiting-
definitely book you for that on a future topic.
I would love to do that. And we
Awesome.
do recruiting for a flat monthly fee, no placement fees, basically outsource the whole thing to us. And then we work for you. We don't work for candidates. And,
Awesome.
and that's the approach. So,
That's awesome. I love it. Well, with that, I think we'll go ahead and cut out of here. We've overstayed our welcome by 3 minutes, but we'll just have to apologize for that in the video when we get that out to everybody. So
I
you
got
will get the
15
video.
more seconds. I want people to understand why Shawn and I do this. And that's because of these two folks right here. We like working with real people. We like working with, there's two different kinds of vendors out there. And there's ones where the owners are involved and they're real people. And there's ones where everyone's a hired hand. It's all VC backed, and you're going to get BS after BS after BS. And they're going to tell you whatever they think you want to hear. And I hope we don't put too many of those people in front of you. We're here with these people because of who they are. So
No, I will definitely tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, but that's okay. I appreciate that. And I think that's why we like working with you guys too. But you'll find that we're very transparent vendors. That is in fact one of our core values. And we just call it like it is. It's way easier to be straight with your partners. And that's the reason that if you go out on social media, go out in Slack channels, go out on Reddit and say, hey, what do you think of Lifecycle Insights? Our partners will respond. They'll tell you what they think of us. And I'd encourage you to do that if you're thinking about working with us, because you'll get the answer that we hope you'll hear. But you'll get folks coming back and telling you that we're real human beings. You can work with us. We'll respond to you. Your tickets don't sit for weeks and months. In fact, they all get touched same day. We definitely value the client experience, which is why we're building tools that help you with the client experience. So
Thanks so much, Alex.
Yeah, let's wrap with that, and we will have you guys back soon.
Great.
Dave, Shawn, thank you. Marnie, thanks for managing the chat in the background and all that. We greatly appreciate it.